It is only 24 days until Christmas. Green reveals to his boss that he has found samples of sawdust almost 400 meters deep inside the mountain, where he and his colleagues are drilling. Logically, such a discovery should be impossible. However, Riley explains that the wooden remains were once used to house a human body, and that the mountain is not natural at all. Instead, it is a massive icebox carefully built to store something extremely important. Encouraged by this breakthrough after years of searching, Riley decides to visit the dig site. He gathers all the workers together and makes an announcement. They are standing in a mountain range in Lapland, a place where legends say Santa Claus once lived. During his speech, Riley claims that his childhood dream is finally coming true. He then reveals his shocking belief that this mountain is Santa's sacred tomb, built to serve as his final resting place. The businessman announces that the workers now have only 24 days to open the mountain, which took years to construct because he plans to loot the tomb by Christmas. What neither of the men realizes is that two children are hiding nearby listening to everything. When they discover that Riley plans to use dynamite to blow the mountain open, Uso runs away in fear, followed closely by his friend Pitari. Pitari is devastated by the revelation. If Santa Claus were buried inside that mountain, it means he truly perished. When the boy returns home, he begins reading old books that reveal the real origin of Santa Claus. To his horror, he learns that the old man was not as kind and benevolent as he once believed. 3 weeks later, on Christmas Eve, Rauno prepares pointed wooden sticks to build a hunting trap, using a pig's head as bait. Later that night, Pitari is awakened when someone throws snowballs at his bedroom window. He looks outside and notices strange footprints in the snow, leaving him completely stunned. According to the books he read, those marks belong to Santa Claus. Terrified, Pitari runs to find his father and enters the slaughterhouse where he works. As Rauno dismembers the pig, the boy closes his eyes and asks if the footprints outside his window were his father's. Rauno tells him they were not, then orders him to get dressed, as they are going reindeer hunting. When they arrive at the camp, Pitari meets Uso again and tells him that Santa Claus was watching his house the previous night. Moments later, the first reindeer appear and the men celebrate, convinced their storage will soon be full of meat. However, only 2 reindeer approach the site. Confused, the group begins to wonder what happened to the rest of the herd. Looking toward the mountain, Rauno comes to a troubling conclusion. He believes the diggers are involved in the disappearance of the reindeer. Determined to find answers, he heads toward the mountain, followed by Uso and Pitari. As they near the border, they discover dozens of lifeless reindeer scattered across the snow. Rauno orders Uso to stay behind with his son while he and another hunter go after those responsible. Near the security fence, they encounter Amo and notice a hole cut into the barrier. Pitari is threatened and warned not to tell anyone that he and Uso were the ones who cut the fence, insisting the adults must never know they had been on the mountain. Seeing the damage, Rauno believes the Russians drilling into the mountain slaughtered the reindeer as revenge for the intrusion. While the adults assess the destruction, Pitari secretly examines the bodies and freezes in terror. The same footprints he saw outside his bedroom are stamped into the snow beside the dead animals. Furious, Rauno makes a drastic decision. He fires his shotgun to force open the gate. The group then invades the restricted area, climbs into their vehicles and begins driving toward the top of the mountain. However, when they enter the shelter, they discover that Riley and his men have already left. Perrin manages to turn on the lights so they can investigate the place. That is when he finds the massive hole the diggers made and calls the others over to see the truth for themselves. It becomes clear that Riley obtained a license to use explosives on the mountain under the excuse of conducting seismic research. Now the locals realize that the Russians were digging for something far more serious. To determine how deep the hole goes, Rauno throws a flare inside. The light reveals a pit far larger than expected, confirming that something enormous was taken from the mountain. Frustrated and shaken, the villagers return to their homes. Later that evening, Rauno prepares dinner while Uso and Pitari sit together in the bedroom. Pitari warns his friend to protect himself, convinced that Santa Claus is nearby and could attack at any moment. Hearing this, Uso laughs and makes fun of him. In response, Pitari shows him pages from the old book he has been reading. He explains that the real Santa Claus is nothing like the kind old man adults talk about. According to the book, long ago Santa captured children, which enraged the villagers. To stop him, they lured Santa onto a frozen lake. When he arrived, the ice broke beneath him and he sank into the freezing water. Santa's body froze there, and months later, during the summer, the villagers pulled a massive block of ice from the lake. They hid the frozen body deep inside the mountain. After finishing the story, Pitari tries to convince Uso to admit that they were the ones who cut the hole in the fence, but Uso refuses, unwilling to face the consequences. Later, Pitari eats gingerbread cookies with his father. Rauno struggles to hold back his tears so his son will not see him cry. Afterwards, Pitari returns to his room and spends the entire night sitting by the window watching carefully, terrified that Santa might invade his room. The next morning, Green contacts his company and urgently tells them the operation must be cancelled. What is buried in that mountain is not what Riley believed. Suddenly, he hears screams from his coworkers and realizes they are being attacked by a humanoid creature. That same morning, as Rauno tries to light the fire, he notices something moving inside the fireplace. He screams, waking Pitari, who rushes downstairs with his rifle ready to shoot. However, Rauno discovers a trap inside the fireplace and angrily accuses his son of placing his hunting equipment there. Minutes later, as Rauno steps outside, Pitari notices the pig's head has vanished. He calls his father to check the trap. Nearby, Rauno finds white feathers scattered on the ground, but when he looks into the hole, a human hand. Shocked, he immediately takes his son back inside. Curious, Pitari asks what was inside the hole, but Rauno lies and says it was just a bird that stole the bait. While Pitari eats breakfast, Pinin arrives dressed as Santa Claus. Rauno asks for his help to dispose of the body. Together, they drag it into the slaughterhouse fridge and check the man's passport, discovering he is American. They conclude that the bearded old man must be one of the homeless people living on the mountain. Believing no one will miss him, they discuss how to get rid of the body. Looking at his butchering tools, Rauno decides to dismember the corpse and Pinin offers to help. Meanwhile, Pitari sneaks back to the hole and finds a sack of potatoes inside. When he opens it, he discovers a small wooden doll. Suspicious, he goes to spy on what his father is doing in the fridge. Just as Rauno is about to begin cutting the body, the old man suddenly pulls his arm back. He realizes the man is still breathing. The old man begins sniffing the air and slowly turns toward the window. Noticing Pitari watching, realizing he has been seen, the boy runs into the forest and Rauno chases after him. Pinin stays behind to watch over the injured man. Rauno eventually finds his son about to get into a police car. Afraid of what Pitari might tell the officer, he secretly follows the vehicle. He soon learns the sheriff is heading to Amo's house. There the man explains that 200 sacks of potatoes were stolen from his warehouse overnight, and strangely nothing else was taken. The sheriff then reveals that during the same night, nearly every house in the village had its heaters stolen. Just then Pitari goes to visit his friend, who is still fast asleep. However, when Pitari enters Uso's room, he discovers that his friend is gone. In his place, a small wooden doll has been left behind, identical to the one Pitari found earlier in the trap. Realizing something is terribly wrong, Pitari immediately runs to the sheriff and tells him that Uso has been captured. The sheriff dismisses the claim, suggesting the boy probably ran off to meet a girl. After the sheriff leaves, Rauno tells Amo what happened and asks for his help. Since Amo is one of the few people in the village who can speak English, Rauno hopes he can communicate with the old man they found. While they are gone, Pinin is left alone with the injured man. He approaches him with a gingerbread cookie and notices the old man has started sniffing again. Suddenly, the old man tries to speak. As Pinin leans in to hear him, he is violently attacked. When Rauno and Amo return, they find Pinin bleeding. He tells them he was bitten and insists that the old man is not human. Furious, Amo storms into the fridge ready to shoot anything that moves. Inside, the three men find Brian cowering on the floor. Amo cautiously approaches and tries to speak to him, but the old man does not respond. Rauno grabs a broomstick and begins poking Brian while Amo keeps his shotgun aimed at him. At the same time, Pitari starts calling the houses of his friends. One by one, he learns that none of the children have been seen since early that morning. Terrified, he runs to his father and explains that all the children have been taken. Confused, Rauno asks him to come inside and see something. When Brian smells Pitari, he suddenly stands up. Rauno asks his son if he recognizes the old man. Pitari then reveals the truth. He explains that the man knows all the children in the world and has been spying on the village for days. Finally, Pitari says it out loud. This man is Santa Claus and he came here to capture the children. According to Pitari, Santa was freed when the Russians excavated the mountain. Pinin believes him and admits that he always knew Brian was not an ordinary human, but a cursed creature. Suddenly, the old man stares directly at Pitari and begins walking toward him. Terrified, the boy hides behind his father and Amo shoots Santa. Rauno and the others quickly chain him up. While eating cookies, they argue about what to do with the monster. Suddenly, they hear a noise from a radio. They discover that the jacket Santa was wearing belonged to one of the diggers. This means Brian was actually the name of one of the men Santa killed. Amo is then informed that a search party is heading to the mountain to loot Santa's tomb. At that moment, Rauno comes up with a plan. He contacts Riley and claims that they have the man everyone is looking for, demanding a large sum of money in exchange. The group arranges a meeting and transports Santa, locked inside a cage. Even inside the cage, Santa remains obsessed with Pitari. Every time the boy looks at him, he gets goosebumps. When they reach the meeting point, Rauno orders Pitari to stay inside the truck while the adults negotiate. Moments later, a helicopter lands and Riley steps out. Riley asks what they want in exchange for the old man. Amo demands $85,000, the value of the reindeer that were slaughtered. Before agreeing, Riley asks to see Santa. The men bring the cage forward as Riley inspects his prize. Meanwhile, Pitari quietly leaves the truck and walks toward a nearby warehouse. As Riley looks into Santa's eyes, he seems almost hypnotized, but he manages to look away just in time. He signals his men to stay silent and then claims that this is not Santa Claus, but one of his helper elves. Hearing this, Rauno loses his patience. Believing Riley is trying to trick them, he demands the money immediately. As the argument escalates, the lights suddenly go out. Riley coldly says that now it will be up to Santa Claus to decide who deserves to live. Suddenly, they hear the helicopter pilot screaming. However, no one can see what is happening. The three men stand back to back, weapons raised ready to fire. As they look around, they realize they are surrounded by countless elves. Suddenly, Riley is struck in the head with an axe and killed instantly. Rauno panics and runs toward the truck, searching for Pitari. When he realizes his son has entered the shed, he rushes after him, followed closely by Amo and Pinin. Inside, Pitari stares in shock at the massive structure built within the warehouse. He realizes the elves are constructing a nest for their master, attempting to fully thaw Santa Claus. Moments later, they hear the screams of the captured children. Amo immediately rushes to free them, discovering they are trapped inside large potato sacks. Meanwhile, Pinin begins destroying the heaters being used to melt the ice, while Rauno struggles to hold the door shut against the attacking elves. Seeing his friends and family in danger, Pitari comes up with a desperate plan. He declares that as long as Santa Claus is alive, the children will never be safe. The only solution is to blow up the shed. However, for the plan to work, someone must steal the helicopter. Since only one of them knows how to fly, Pinin volunteers for the mission and uses Christmas cookies as bait to distract the elves. After reaching the helicopter, Pinin manages to take off. Pitari then orders the adults to gather all the children into a giant net so Pinin can airlift them away. As the children are pulled to safety, Amo and Rauno drill strategic holes into the massive block of ice, inserting dynamite to destroy Santa Claus once and for all. When Pitari looks down and sees the horde of elves chasing them, he realizes his plan is working. Using the radio, he gives Pinin the coordinates. His idea is to treat the elves like reindeer, guiding them toward a corral by using the children as bait. Minutes later, Amo and Rauno finish placing the explosives and cover the ice mountain with charges. The two men then use a chainsaw to cut off Santa's horns and return to the truck. As they approach the final location, Pitari notices the corral gate is still closed. He knows that unless it is opened, the elves cannot be contained. Despite Pinin's warnings, Pitari jumps from the net and clings to the power cables. After climbing down from the tower, he opens the gate and turns to see dozens of creatures charging straight at him. Realizing he may not survive, the boy contacts Pinin one last time and asks him to tell his father that he died a hero. At that very moment, Rauno and Amo have just escaped the warehouse. As Amo drives away, Rauno presses the detonator. The explosives ignite and Santa Claus is finally destroyed. Instantly, the elves stop their attack and abandon Pitari, having lost their master and their purpose. Relieved, Pitari thanks the heavens for a Christmas miracle and asks Pinin to take the children home. After safely returning them to their parents, the men head to the corral to retrieve Pitari. Everyone is stunned by what he has accomplished. Not only has he saved all the children, but he has also managed to capture dozens of elves. Once sold, the elves will make Rauno and the villagers wealthy for the first time in their lives. Pitari feels that he has finally earned his father's trust and is overjoyed to know he has made him proud. A few days later, the three men bathe the elves and begin the process of reintroducing them to society. The first step is teaching these old creatures that children are friends and must be protected. Over the following months, the elves slowly change, learning to care for children instead of hunting them. Eventually, Rauno begins training them to deliver presents. By the end of the following year, the group starts selling the elves, who have now replaced Santa Claus, exporting them as a rare species to countries all around the world.